Welcome to the raw and uncensored Ambitchious Podcast. During our time here together, I will be instilling all of the strength, power, and determination you will need to use the very stones thrown at you to build your ultimate empire. We will redefine the word bitch from the derogatory to the acronym being in total control of herself. So let's adjust our crowns and prepare to live life ambitiously.
Yeah, here I am, the original HBIC, Katie motherfucking Boyd. And on today's podcast, we're going to be talking about something a lot serious. And it's something that I have been witnessing and really experiencing for about a decade. But I feel like right now, in this day and age, it is more prevalent than it has ever been, at least in our lifetimes. And that is spiritual warfare. Oh yeah. I'm going to break it down for you because let me tell you, it's a doozy. It is a doozy. So the perception of heightened spiritual warfare can vary depending on individual beliefs and cultural contexts and current global events. So if you have been living under a rock, it's time to wake up and smell the pussy, as Lil Wayne once said, and really realize that you are at war. You're at war in your homes. You're at war every time that you turn on your television, you look at your phone, you go out into public, whether it's a Target run or it's going to a restaurant with your husband or picking your children up for school or extracurricular activities with your children or hobbies that you may have. It is prevalent in all aspects of our life. And many people who interpret world events, and there's lots of them, right? There's Baba Yaga, there's Nostradamus back in the day. There's a ton of people who are channelers and are, clairvoyants, and they're oracles, and they're medicine women, and they're healers, and they can actually predict the future. And they can do this through spiritual or even religious lenses. And they all feel that there is an increased sense of spiritual conflicts on this three-dimensional earth plane. And there's definitely a struggle between good and evil happening right before our eyes. But so many of us are so sleepy time tea that we don't even realize that it's happening, and we're getting sucked in. And then we wonder why we feel like a bag of smashed assholes. Well, we're going to talk about all of this today. So the dance, the struggle, right? The tango, if you will, between good and evil. So from a broader perspective, whether there is objectively a heightened sense of spiritual warfare is truly a matter of, your own personal belief. Okay. So you may listen to this podcast right now and be like, what the fuck is Katie talking about? Well, I'm going to school your ass today. And some people actually believe that this is a scientific thing. Some people believe it's an energy thing. Some people, like I said, believe it's a spiritual or a religious thing. And this can be influenced by societal upheavals. I mean, look at all around us, what we've been going through. At least, if you can't remember back that far, at least think back to 2020 and what we have endured, both collectively and singularly. And we've had conflicts and wars and fear mongering and personal experiences. And that is really leading people to really think outside the box and say, like, this is not just like this everyday occurrence. This is actually like a spiritual battle being held on the three-dimensional earth plane. So if you've been experiencing this perception, and I know I have, it may be helpful to explore today how these things affect your life and how it affects the lives of all the people that you love all around you. And I hope that this podcast resonates with you, because I truly believe that so many people that I know are playing small and they're not doing big things, because at the end of the day, like, they're like, what's the point? At any moment, someone could press the red button. At any moment, there could be another pandemic. At any moment, there could be World War III. I mean, we've been on the precipice of this for some time now. And I've been studying this for a very long time. As you guys know, I'm very spiritual, but I am Catholic. So I was born and raised Catholic school. I was a cradle Catholic. I went to church 7 days a week. 7 days a week. Now you know why I'm so fucked up. No, just kidding. I love Jesus, but I'm glad that my grandmother did a lot of that with me, but at the same time, it was confusing a lot as a child. And then getting older and becoming more spiritual and really going more towards metaphysical and energy. But at the end of the day, it all is the same shit. I mean, I hate to say it like this because I know people are going to come for me, but at the end of the day, it's the same shit in a different bucket. But one of the things that I have been studying for a while, and I think this is so interesting, is called the Kali Yuga. And this is a Hindu tradition. I'm not Hindu by any means, so I'm not trying to be an expert in Hinduism and their beliefs, but I do have a lot of friends who are Hindu, and we have very in-depth conversations about this all the time. But in Hindu tradition, the Kali Yuga, so Kali, Yuga, Yuga, is considered the fourth and final age in a cycle of yugas, which are epochs, characterized by a decline in virtue. So listen to me. So really think about this Kali Yuga whole idea. So it's characterized by a decline in virtue, righteousness, and spiritual awareness. And some followers believe that as the Kali Yuga progresses towards its end phase, which we're in that right now, there may be increased spiritual struggles and conflicts, both externally in the world and internally within each and every individual on this earth. So this Hindu belief, suggests that the heightened sense of spiritual warfare or chaos could be linked to the nearing conclusion of the Kali Yuga, a time often associated with challenges and opportunities for spiritual growth. So some people interpret current global events through this lens, and many spiritual traditions and sources suggest that an increasing number of people are experiencing heightened consciousness or awakening in recent times. And like, if you really look around you and you're honest with yourself, like, how many people now are like, I'm spiritual, I'm awakened, I'm red pilled, right? I understand that it's really this struggle between good and evil. Like, the movie The Matrix was a documentary, it was not a movie, right? It's like, are you going to take the red pill, or are you going to go and take the blue pill and you're going to go back to sleep? And so with this interpretation of the current global events through this lens, the next yuga, so that comes after the Kali Yuga, is called the Satya Yuga. So Satya, Yuga, Yuga, which is also coined the Age of Truth. And in many spiritual traditions and sources suggest that an increasing number of people are experiencing heightened consciousness or awakening in recent times. And like I said, you're seeing it all around you, left and right? So this phenomenon is referred to as a spiritual awakening or collective awakening, and is associated with a growing awareness of higher truths, self-realization, and interconnectedness. So just like, look at what happened to Charlie Kirk a few months back. And whether you love him or you hate him, I liked Charlie. I know his wife very well. She was a pageant girl when I was still the official sponsor for Miss USA. So I know Erica. And whether you love him or you hate him, you could be totally against Christianity. But after he passed away, you saw this like awakening of people, like something shifted the day he was assassinated. And there was this revival, if you will, of Christianity and Catholicism and worship in a very different way than what we have seen recently. And I hated that someone had to die for this awakening to happen. But that's usually, if you read history, that's why it's so important to know your history and to not let people erase history, no matter how ugly and dark it is. Because once you erase history and you forget, that is when history repeats itself. Okay? So with the spiritual awakening, with this collective awakening, it's associated with a growing awareness of higher truths, self-realizations, and interconnectedness, right? I mean, there was people that I know, because I have clients from every continent on this planet. And it was crazy because so many people were reaching out to me and they were like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened to Charlie Kirk. And, they live in Australia or Germany or Africa. And I'm just like, wow, like, I didn't know you even knew who this person was. And they're like, oh, we love him here. And, a lot of the things he said we really agree with, or I've actually had people say like, we don't agree with him, which is fine too. But just the fact that they're seeing and hearing and feeling this thing happen in real time, it's just the interconnectedness is, you cannot dispute that, right? So what are some factors when it comes to talking about this spiritual warfare or this Kali Yuga or this spiritual awakening? Or some people are calling it like entering the age of Aquarius, which I actually really subscribe to. And the contributing factors to this awakening time is global access to information and spiritual teachings. So like, it's not really difficult if you are trying to learn things about spirituality or any of these things that I'm going to be talking about today on the Ambitchious Podcast. You can just Google it. You can watch YouTube. You can listen to podcasts. I mean, there's just so, back in the day when I was a kid, you'd have to have the set of Encyclopedia Britannicas. And like, that was all the information. Like, you'd have to go to the library. You couldn't just go on a computer and like search these things, right? So people are having more access, even in rural, very out there areas in the world, to be able to learn these things. It's also about an increased focus on mental and emotional and spiritual well-being, which is so important. And then there's major world events that are prompting reflection and introspection, like what we just saw happen with, Gaza and Hamas and, the hostages and all these things, right? Like, people look at this, and whether you err on the side of Israel or Palestine, it does not freaking matter. Like, I'm not here to say, oh, I'm choosing this side or that side. So let's stay focused. I don't care if you're living under a rock. If you know what happened over there and you were watching it, no matter how you felt about it, you can't help but sit back and go like, wow, what if that happened to him? I said that to Matthew the other day. I go, could you imagine we were at like a concert and I got taken and you didn't see me for 2 years and you didn't know if I was dead or alive, or I was sexually assaulted, or I was, had my limbs cut off. I mean, you did like, and he was just like looking at me like, no, I would die. I would absolutely die. I wouldn't even know how to handle that, So it's giving us these things. It's holding this mirror up to us, and it's forcing us to think about these very uncomfortable things. And the other thing is the rise of communities sharing spiritual experiences. This stuff's been going on for thousands of years, but really it's so easy to like post something and have it become viral and spread that awareness, right? So while individual experiences vary, right, they do all over the world, many believe that more and more people are becoming aware, hyper aware of their spiritual nature, and they're seeking deeper understanding and connection. And this collective awakening is seen by some as a sign of spiritual evolution, which is so exciting, or transformation that's happening in real time at a global level. And as awakened individuals navigating this time, what many really perceive as spiritual warfare, and I believe it is, I want to give you right now some guiding principles and practices that can help you navigate this time, because I'm here to tell you, whoever you are out there, and obviously, thank you for listening. I would love to get you to know you better, but whoever you are out there and whatever you believe, you're feeling this shift. you're feeling the uncomfortable energy. It just feels this abrasion, like, and I'm just going to speak from my heart, like every day I'm like, okay, today I'm going to podcast and I'm going to help my clients and I'm going to go into KBMC wellness and I'm going to do this event and I'm going to speak on this person's podcast and I'm going to do a YouTube video, all the things that I do, within my companies. But there's always like this, and I don't know if I'm the only one. So if you feel the same way, please reach out to me and tell me so I don't feel like I'm totally alone. But there's always like this underlying hum of like, who cares anyways? Why even bother? If you think back to 2020, when we went through the pandemic, I had my whole world and my whole life was just planned out in front of me. I was going on a worldwide book tour and a press tour and I was doing all this amazing stuff. And then 2020 happened and then the pandemic happened and the world just shut down and all the things that I'm speaking for myself, that I worked so hard to create and to plan down to the most like minute of details was just thrown out the window. And we had to pivot. And we had to pivot hard. And so there's always like this little piece of me underneath, like, I don't know if it must be in my subconscious mind at this point, but it's always like this little voice in my head that's like, it's like we plan and God laughs, right? Like that's the old adage. But there's always this like little piece of me that doesn't really want to go the distance because it's like, what if I do all this work and I work so hard and then something horrible happens that just totally changes the trajectory of the world, like COVID. Okay. And I don't want to be a downer. I'm being totally honest with you. And I'm sure that you may feel similarly. And I know a lot of my clients and I have these conversations all the time. And while I'm a very positive person, I'm also a very reality-based person. So I'm trying to always just be in my sovereign autonomous energy. And I'm always really working diligently on not becoming distracted by, the peasantry. And, remember, like there's a club out there of people and of systems, and they're really the ones that are running this world. And guess what? You're not in the club. And I'm not talking about the Illuminati or any of that shit. I'm talking about there's a whole group of people and there's a whole system of these people that they belong to, and you're not part of the club, and you ain't never going to be part of the club. And the quicker that you've realized that, the better that you can live your life. So I want to give you some of the principles and some of the guides that I use to keep myself foundationally strong and very rooted and very focused and really just honing in and hammering on my mission and my definiteness of purpose, because the dark forces out there in the world, they want you broke, they want you fat, they want you sick, they want you stupid, they want you distracted, they want you drugged, and they want you numb. And I believe that with every fiber of my physical vessel. So what do I do every day to keep me on the straight and narrow so I don't end up in the loony bin on a grippy sock vacation eating tapioca and drooling on myself? Because there were some times during the vid that I was about ready to go there, especially like if you're like me and you worked so hard your whole life to create this brand and this business, and then to watch it slip from your fingers and just try to keep all the balls up in the air. It was not an easy task for anyone, especially me. I was struggling. So this is what I do every day. The first thing is I want you to focus on staying grounded and centered. And how do we do that? So maintaining a strong connection to your inner peace and your definiteness of purpose, and knowing every day, like when you wake up, this is why I'm waking up. This is my mission. This is why God put me here. And just staying monomaniacally focused with those blinders on to only do the thing that you came here to do. And you can also do this with meditation and prayer. You guys know that I meditate. I do breath work. That I have mindfulness practices. That I have daily rituals. I talk about this all the time on the Ambitchious app. I talk about it here on the podcast. I speak about it in my book. But anything that's going to ground you, that's going to help you remain calm and resilient amidst chaos and frenetic energy. That is the most important thing. So if you don't have rituals, yet, reach out to me. Let's have a conversation because I think it's so important. And over on my Ambitchious app, or even on at KBMC Wellness in Hudson, New Hampshire, this is what I do. This is what I teach. The second thing is what we have to do is we have to, and I do this every day, and it's difficult because I get crazy, I get crunk, and I want to fucking punch babies, and I want to cunt punt bitches right in their guns. I know, I'm mean sometimes. But we have to practice discernment. So cultivating the ability to distinguish between positive and negative people, between positive and negative energy, social media, gossip, news, whatever, okay? You got to be discerning. You have to be discerning about all the information that's coming into your physical body. You have to be discerning about any influences that you may have, even to the point where, I have a friend, and this friend, every time, well, we don't go out with this friend anymore, really. But every time I used to go out with this person would be like, oh my God, did you see this happen on the news? And, inflation and everything is so expensive, and, just bitching and complaining about like how much the food costs at dinner, and, like what's happening overseas or whatever, like any like low vibrational shit. It's like, babe, like I'm out with you for dinner because I don't want to fucking talk about this shit, and you've talked nothing else but this thing. I need to be discerning because I need to protect my precious life force energy from your energy. I love you, but I don't want to spend my dinner with you. You know what I'm saying? So choose to focus on what elevates and uplifts you and your consciousness and your vibrational frequency. And if it doesn't, cut it the fuck out. And I mean that about people. I mean that about social media. I mean that about, places in public that you may go. It doesn't matter. Whatever it is, you have to practice that discernment more now than ever during this time of spiritual warfare. Number 3, you have to focus on expanding your compassion and expanding your love, which sounds like hippy dippy, but it's not. And I'm going to tell you why. So when and I try this every day, when I respond to challenges and adversity, and let me tell you, honey, I have challenges and adversity every motherfucking day. But when I focus on those things, when I focus on compassion and empathy and love and all the beautiful things that we talk about with our core desired feelings, these are very, very powerful tools for transformation. And these foci, is that a fucking word? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? The things to focus on should be compassion and love. And that is going to help always shift any negative low vibrational frequency energies, because you can't have a negative and a positive thought at the same time. It's actually impossible. So if you're always filling your head up with positivity and love and compassion and joy and freedom and all those things, you're going to have a great life, right? You'll still be informed, but you're not going to get sucked into the darkness. And if you haven't already, go on YouTube, or you can buy the book or whatever, but Outwitting the Devil, how the dark forces, how the devil, how Satan, how that low vibrational frequency energy keeps us in hypnotic rhythm, which is in itself spiritual warfare. If you have not read that book yet, please, I implore you to do so. The next thing is you have to protect your energy. I talk about this so much in the book. I talk about this, about, cloaking and cord cutting every day. If you haven't bought the book yet, it's out now on Amazon, in Kindle, and in paperback. Or if you want a hardcover, you go to kbmfc.com. And if you buy it there, I will also write you a beautiful note inside of the inside cover. But, using visualization, using affirmations, using your spiritual tools to shield yourself from negative influences, and regularly cleansing and grounding your energy, and having routines throughout the day that strengthen your spiritual resilience. I had a friend the other day who went to the hospital, and they got really sick after they went to the hospital. And I said, did you cloak yourself before you went into the hospital? And she was like, no. And I was like, did you cord cut when you left? And she's like, no, I totally forgot. And I said, when you're at a hospital, even though, they're trying to make people well, which that's another story for another day. But obviously this person was going to go see their physician. A lot of people die in the hospital. There's a lot of that dead spirit energy in the hospital. And if you're a light and they see you, the spirit that just passed over, they can glom onto you. I've had my husband come home from hospitals before and he didn't even look like himself. And I'll never forget, one day he had just got home from the hospital because he works in healthcare. And he was like singing in the car and he was like, I believe I can fly. And I was like, who the fuck are you? And what have you done with my husband? It was like this old black lady singing this R. Kelly song. Okay. Even his eyes looked demonic and possessed. And I was like, Matt, cord cut right now. And he did it. And he was like, holy shit. I was like, yeah, dude, something like hopped into you. And he was like, I felt it. And I didn't know what it was. And I was like, yeah. So protecting your energy is so, so important. And cord cutting, even the people that you love, even protecting your energy from the people and the things that you love is so important. Okay. The next one, and this is so hard, and I do it, but I'm an Aquarius and I'm very cerebral and I want to always understand why things are happening. I don't like when people talk about things that they don't know what they're talking about. It's very embarrassing to be around that energy. So anytime I speak on, current events, news, tragedies and stuff, I want to really understand what happened. I don't want to just talk out of my ass. And my husband's like this too, where he will watch the news and I'm like, that's not healthy. It's like, and I say to him, stay informed, but don't be consumed by the information. So you have to, if you're living in this world, you've got to be aware of world events, but you have to avoid being overwhelmed and just overtaken and consumed by the fear and the despair. Because remember, love him or hate him, when Donald Trump calls the news fake news, it's real, because whether you are a Republican or you are a Democrat or you're something in between, it doesn't matter. Whatever news outlet you're watching, you are watching it and you're being propagandized by their narrative, right? It is fake news. It's bullshit, because then, you'll go on Fox News and you'll watch one thing and you'll be like, oh, and then you'll go on CNN or MSNBC and you'll be like, wait a minute, that's totally different from what they just told me over at Fox. And then you go on social media and then you're like, I really don't know what to believe now, because now things have AI and they're so good. You're like, I sound like a boomer right now, but they're so good that you're like, oh my God, you don't even know if it's real or not. But I tell people, you have to balance your awareness with hope and positive action. I do not like people who just talk and talk and talk about all the tragedies and the news and the conspiracy theories. And then what are you doing about it? Are you becoming a voice for, this cause? No, you just want to talk shit. And it's such a waste of your precious life force energy. So like I said, stay informed, but don't get overwhelmed. The next one is we have to continuously align with higher frequencies. So we have to engage in activities that raise our vibrational state, such as gratitude, kindness, creativity, giving back, right? Donating your time, spiritual study, hobbies, just something that hanging out with friends, going to a spiritual event, doing yoga, meditation, being part of something bigger than yourself is so important during this time. And this is going to help you act and show up from a place of light and love rather than fear. Because remember, guys, there's only two truths in the world, love and fear. And you have to ask yourself, which of the two truths are you operating out of? If you're operating out of fear, right, you're saying like, oh my God, there's scarcity, there's lack, there's just famine and sadness and war and ugh. Or if you're operating out of a place of love, you say to yourself, like, I know that the world is not perfect, but I choose today to be the lighthouse. I choose to be loving and kind and compassionate. And the more you show up in a higher frequency, you're going to attract more of that. Remember, because like attracts like. It's a universal law. I'm going to be doing a podcast about that coming up because I think it's so important. So if you're coming from a place of fear, you're going to get more fear and more lack and more not enoughness and more self-esteem and self-worth issues. If you're coming from a place of love, you're going to have more joy and freedom and all the beautiful things that God wants you to experience. The next one is we have to offer support to other people who maybe are not as spiritually aware and evolved as we are. And this is not like, I'm better than you. I'm not saying that. I'm coming from a place of like, there's a lot of people out there who are operating from fear. They just have not awakened yet. And it's up to us as awakened humans who chose to come down and have this human experience as a spiritual being to offer guidance and encouragement and a sense of community, because collective consciousness always will amplify positive change. Always. There's no other way. And the last thing that I have been using over the last couple of years, and I've stepped it up even more recently because of all the things that have been going on in our world, is maintaining faith and trust. So believing in your heart and in your soul that God has a higher plan, not only for us singularly, but for the collective. And you have to believe in divine timing. You have to believe that everything happens for a reason. There's always a bigger picture. And that the universe is inherently good. It's not inherently bad. And that we have to trust that in the end, light and love and God will always prevail. Ultimately, it will always prevail, right? Okay. So before I was talking about, practicing some energy protection. Okay. So I really, truly believed that practicing energy protection, being this beacon of light, helping navigate others to transform within these challenging times that we're all experiencing, and having grace and having strength is the most important thing. And there are so many spiritual practices, whether it is Christianity or it's spirituality or it's energy or whatever it is. There's so many spiritual teachings and practices that emphasize the importance of protecting your precious energy. And especially during these times that are perceived as tumultuous and chaotic and fear-mongering and frenetic and are tumultuously filled with spiritual conflict. Fiercely protecting your energy, fiercely protecting your boundaries can maintain your peace and your clarity and your resilience and really, honestly, your dignity. So how are we going to do this? So I want to go a little bit deeper into this because I think it's important. So like I talk about in the book, I talk about cloaking. If that's too much for you, which I love it. And like I said, I teach this on the app and in my book, but visualizing that protective shield around you before you leave the house and using affirmations and prayers. I always have my rosary with me. Some people use crystals, right? The other thing I want to talk about, because I have a lot of people that are like, well, you're Catholic and you like crystals. And it's like, yeah, God made crystals and they're beautiful. I don't worship them, but you can use, crystals as an anchor. You're not saying that this crystal's God and I'm worshiping this amethyst. You're giving it a job. And even in the Bible, they talk about crystals a lot. And they actually talk about wearing armor with like amethyst and all these different crystals. So, people that are like, oh, that's New Age and, you're Catholic and I don't understand. And I'm just like, shut the fuck up. Like, I don't know what Bible you're reading, but it ain't the one I'm reading, because let's stop the madness. Another thing that we can do, and I do this a lot, is engage in energy cleansing rituals like salt baths. I use Little Fox. It's my favorite bath soak. Oh my God, it smells so amazing. It's a ritual. It's a spiritual, sacred, energetic, just fiesta for your senses. And I'll do that a couple times a week. Some people like to smudge or use Palo Santo or use essential oils. Some people like to do Reiki. It doesn't matter. Whatever sings to you and speaks to you is fine with me, but that's what I do. And I also really limit my exposure to negative media, to negative social media, to negative environments. I always focus on surrounding myself with positive, supportive people. Listen, everyone has a bad day. Everyone gets sucked into the shit pit. I'm not saying everyone has to be perfect to be my friend. But if every time I see you, you're complaining about shit that you have no control over and that most of the time is just make-believe bullshit, you're not going to see me as much. Okay? So really surrounding yourself with positive, supportive people is so important. The next thing is staying grounded, like I said, through your meditation or your prayer or going on, Shinrin Yoku, like nature walks or some kind of calming activity, right? Because fiercely protecting your energy means prioritizing your well-being and not allowing any frenetic external chaos or negativity to drain or influence your inner state, right? You want to always be the sun in that solar system. The sun is what keeps all the planets in alignment, that gravitational pull. Mercury doesn't come pull the sun out and said like, hey, let's go over here and do something different. Or like Jupiter doesn't do that. Because if Jupiter or Mercury did that to the sun, we would be screwed, right? The Milky Way galaxy would just cease to exist. And we would just probably all turn into supernovas and we would end up like combusting in the middle of space, right? And it's the same thing with our personal lives. Like you have to be that sun that is standing in the middle of your own solar system and being that sovereign, autonomous being and saying, I don't want to talk about the war. I don't want to talk about this shooting. I don't want to talk about this person said this. I don't want to. It's not that I'm spiritually bypassing it, but my happiness and joy and my purpose all hinges on where my focus goes, right? Because wherever your attention goes, that's where the energy is going to flow. So if you're focusing on downtrodden political bullshit all the time, your life is probably going to suck. But if you're like, hey, I'm informed, I know what's going on enough to get me by, but I'm focusing on getting up every day and saying like, okay, God, I'm your humble servant. Use me as a tool and I will do anything that you want me to do. Just guide me, lead me in the right direction. How many people that wake up like that every morning? I do. My husband does. My closest friends and my clients do. But I don't know a lot of people that do. And if I know for a fact that they don't, because if they did, they wouldn't have the life that they have. Shitty. Okay. So when you fiercely protect your energy and you have these boundaries and you maintain your strength and you maintain your sovereign, autonomous, beautiful life force frequency, you can serve and you can uplift others and you will have a better life. Okay. But before we go on to the next thing, I want to talk to you a little bit very quickly about one of our official sponsors to the Ambitchious Podcast, and that is Keto Chow. Keto Chow is the leading meal replacement company dedicated to supporting your ketogenic lifestyle and is now the official sponsor of the Ambitchious Podcast. Imagine a quick, convenient way to get all your essential nutrients from healthy fats and proteins to vitamins and minerals in one yummy shake. That's Keto Chow. Whether you're crushing your workouts, busy with work, or just looking for a tasty way to stay on track, Keto Chow is your go-to hero. And the best part is, to celebrate, Keto Chow is offering 10% off of all of their products just for our ambitious, loyal listeners. Just scroll down to the show notes, click on the link, and get your 10% off at checkout. And let me tell you, I use Keto Chow every day. I either use a shake or I do their electrolytes, which are top notch. But I'm going to tell you something. I got a Ninja Creamy. I know this is like way off topic, but I love it. I got a Ninja Creamy. I don't know if you know what that is, but it makes like ice cream. And I made the most decadent, delightful pistachio ice cream last week with the Keto Chow pistachio protein shake. Holy balls. It was incredible. And my husband, who doesn't even like sweet stuff, he ate like a whole thing of it. So I know it's good when Matt Babine goes Dixie on anything sweet, because he's more of a savory type of fella, if you know what I mean. Okay. So when we're navigating challenging times as we are right now, having this Kali Yuga, spiritual warfare, Age of Aquarius, whatever the hell you want to call it, okay, it ain't good. It's dark shit happening, right? So when we have to navigate challenging times with greater sense of resilience and a greater sense of ease, many spiritual traditions and some of the spiritual traditions that I follow, like I said before, They really give you a variety of tools and practices. And I want to give you guys just a little more in-depth idea of some of the things that I use. And you don't have to use all of them, but at least if you just pick and choose a couple, it's going to make you feel so much better. So much better. Okay. So like I was saying before, meditation and breath work calms the mind, gives you clarity, and it connects you to your inner peace. And there's something about meditating and doing breath work. I can't wait for Dr. Amit Anand's podcast with Clint Valadares to come out at the end of the year about breath-in-ins, because he is one of my teachers that taught me his very specific way of doing breath work. But I do that every day and I meditate. And there's just something about going into that space and quieting your mind. And that's how God can talk to you. God cannot speak to you and tell you your next steps when you're running around like a floozy, okay, on meth. God can only speak to you when you're in that quiet, beautiful, contemplative, prayerful state. Like I said before, focusing on your energy cleansing, focus on, grounding, using the baths, the visualizations, all those things. Using protective tools like the cord cutting, protective shields, cloaking yourself, wrapping yourself up in Christ's light, whatever feels good to you, great. If you like crystals, awesome. I love black tourmaline, black obsidian. The darker crystals are going to be more protective. They're going to absorb negative energy. Using those protective affirmations, like all is well. I am divinely protected. I am a child of the Most High God. No one or nothing that is not for my highest, greatest good can hurt me, or whatever. You can make up whatever ones that feel good to you. If you're religious, studying the Bible, studying sacred texts and teachings that inspire and remind you who the fuck you are. You are a child of the Most High God. You don't need all this worldly bullshit, okay? When you read the Bible or you read, sacred texts or teachings, it really does strengthen your faith, and it reminds you of your purpose. So the next thing that happens down the road, you're not going to be pulled off your course because of it. Like I said before, positive community, positive support, joining the Ambitchious app, coming to KBMFC Wellness, or if you're not around and you want to find an in-person place, find something in your local community that really aligns with you and speaks to you. Having your daily gratitude practice. I do it every day, multiple times a day. Setting your intentions, everything that you do, doing everything with intention and giving everything attention once you set the intention. Giving yourself time for creative expression like dance, music, art, or whatever you're into. It could be movies. It could be, comic books. I don't know, whatever. It could be makeup. I have no idea what it is to you, but having those creative expressions, having those creative outlets, making sure that every day you're doing some kind of act of kindness. So for me, I am the president of my local women's service club here where I live in Windham, New Hampshire, but there's plenty of places all over the world that you can join, that you can do philanthropic work with groups of women. It's one of my most favorite things to do every month. It's just so fun to be with all these other women who are like-minded, who really want to help people. It may not be something of that grand of scale. It could just be something small, really, just helping a stranger who's having a hard time walking, get on a bus, or giving someone that's less fortunate than you a couple dollars, or even just saying something nice to someone like, oh, wow, you look so beautiful today, or I love your outfit. You don't realize even these little small acts of kindness can change the trajectory of a person's life. And think of how many times, and I think about this a lot, how many times I've been in really bad places in my life, and this guardian angel, which I thought was just a stranger off the side of the road, said something really kind to me or helped me in a way that I didn't even know that I needed, and it really changed me. You don't realize there's so many people on the earth right now that are one bad day away from ending it. And I'm not trying to be dark and macabre. This is real. Suicide is through the roof. So little small acts of kindness are going to spread love. It's going to make you feel so good. It's going to elevate your vibrational frequency, and it's going to contribute to the collective healing of Mother Earth and all of her inhabitants. And this is really important. And I haven't touched upon this yet on this podcast, but physical wellness. I cannot tell you how important it is right now to be healthy and have, strength, and eating healthy and exercising and and resting and taking your supplements and, just making yourself stronger, because the dark forces want you fat and sick and weak, not just of the mind, but of the body, right? And don't get it twisted and think that that's not true, because let me tell you, honey, it is very, very true. So some of the things that have been coming up for me, and these are just things that I hear and I experience a lot especially when I wanted to do this podcast, I was trying to come up with ideas and I was trying to take notes every day of things that I was experiencing. And these are the things that came up for me that are really distracting and that are really pulling us off of our center. And while I said before, it's good to be informed and to know what's happening, but when you get too deep into it, that can be a whole other can of worms, and it can be a very slippery slope to the shit pit that you may not be able to crawl out of once you're in there that deep. So what are some things that are coming up? So definitely global conflict and violence. So wars, terror attacks, political unrests, are sometimes viewed as manifestations of darker energies or spiritual battles between the forces of good and evil, right? We've seen it every fucking day for the last 2 years. At least I'm talking about the October 7th incident in Israel. But I mean, we've been seeing this for thousands of years. I'm just speaking from my own standpoint in recent times. There are, and doesn't matter what you believe or don't believe, but people are focused on environmental crises, right? So climate change or natural disasters and ecological things like degradation. And these are a lot of my Christian Catholic friends are like, oh my God, these are the end times. They talk about this in the book of Genesis and Revelation. And this is how the trumpets are going to sound. And this is the end. It's the apocalypse. And while I don't agree with that, it's really difficult to see all these imbalances and to watch people lose their homes in floods and hurricanes and natural disasters and all these things and just be like, la la la. Or like the fires in Maui that happened a couple years ago that literally no one's talked about ever again, because there's been so many other things that have happened that are like, oh God, that's old news. And it's like, no, there's still people that are hurting. There's people that lost their children and their homes, and even the things that happened in California and the Palisades fires, right? When you get so bogged down where you're just like, fuck, we can't even trust the weather. We can't even trust just natural nature. I mean, that can be scary. There's also a lot of misinformation and divisiveness. So the spread of misinformation, polarization, and just overall just social discord on social media, on the news, on any kind of outlet where you get information. These are also considered spiritual attacks. And this misinformation and divisiveness really comes from lower vibrational frequencies and ego-based energies to dominate society, right? Because the left wants you to believe what they want you to believe, and the right wants you to believe what they want you to believe. And somehow you, as a sovereign, autonomous, ambitious woman, have to look around and go I'm going to make my own decisions in life, right? And I'm not going to put myself into places where I am going to get roped into this bullshit. Also, a lot of people talk about materialism. I'm a capitalist. I love money. Like, you guys know that about me. I'm a business coach. If I wasn't a capitalist, I wouldn't be coaching people on how to make more money and have more wealth and all that. But there is a difference between capitalism and wealth and materialism and disconnection. And, the rise of consumerism, of fast fashion. I talk a lot about this in my book, about the loss of connection to, spiritual truths. These are also viewed as this lower vibrational egoic energy that has been dominating society. It's funny. It's like I have girlfriends of mine that, they're like, oh my God, climate change and this and that. And then they're buying clothes from Shein. And I'm like, you can't have it both ways. You can't be like Greta Thunberg, how dare you, and then be wearing fucking clothes from China that were made by child slave labor. You cannot turn a blind eye to one thing and then, think something else is okay. It's just, that's not the way of the world. So when you think more about wealth and abundance and not so much about materialism, it does shift, you into higher frequencies of energy, and it pulls you away from that low vibrational dark force energy. Another thing that is viewed right now as a spiritual warfare is loss of moral values and ethics. I mean, some people that I know that I looked up to and I thought were such incredible people who I loved, and to watch them degrade over the last 5 years and just turn into these people I don't even recognize, right? The erosion of moral and spiritual values in society, including increased corruption, that can also be interpreted as these spiritual attacks, these spiritual warfares. But like I said before, everyone thinks about changing the world, but no one thinks about changing themselves. It's like, you be moral, you be ethical, you be of the highest, greatest good. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing. You show up as the best version of yourself. And guess what? You're going to inspire others, because remember, you're not the lifeboat, you're the lighthouse, right? There's also these divide and conquer tactics that we've all been roped into. I don't care who you are, where you live, everyone is feeling this right now. It's the efforts to create the separation among different groups, and this could be based on race, religion, sex, ideology. This is all spiritual warfare. So let's just say you're a very conservative person and you're like, I don't like these trans people. Who cares? Until someone does something to you personally, where they're hurting your children or they're hurting you, everyone's going to figure out their own shit. And I'm not God, and I'm not here to judge. Right? So you can be the silliest, stupidest, craziest motherfucker on this planet. It's none of my fucking business. When you fuck with me, then it's my motherfucking business. Don't do that, because I'm not the one. But until then, I'm just going to let people do whatever the fuck that they're going to do. They're going to just be silly fucking cunts. None of my business. Okay. And you have to understand that the people who are using race and sex and religion and ideology and, I'm this and you're that and whatever, that is how the devil keeps us all distracted. That is how the devil keeps you off your game. That's how the devil keeps you broke and sick and stupid and unhappy, because instead of focusing on your mission and your purpose here on earth, you're focusing on, this person's wearing hijab and that person's trying to cut their wiener off. It's like, it's none of my business. I don't care. If you want to go be a kitty cat and you want to pee in a litter box in school, God bless. That's not what my child would do. But guess what? Live and let live. Just don't bring your kitty litter box to my house, because I will fucking kick your ass. Okay, anyways. But this is going to weaken the collective, and Satan knows that. And he's a trickster. Don't let him fool you. And then a lot of esoteric traditions, a lot of spiritual traditions, they talk a lot about dark energies and dark entities, right? And while I do believe that that's true, and I've seen it with my own eyes, but constantly focusing on the dark energies and the dark entities around us is not really helping us, right? It's actually draining our life force energy just by talking about it. So know it's real, but don't give it energy, right? Don't give it energy. So how do you know if you are in the midst of a spiritual battle? You are in the full-blown war of spiritual warfare. What's going to come up for you? So while I believe that these struggles are an opportunity to heal and to have spiritual growth and to have this a collective healing and this beautiful awakening, I believe, and I'm only speaking for myself, spiritual warfare can be a deeply personal experience. And a lot of people are going to experience it as struggles like self-doubt and fear and comparison and analysis paralysis and, having negative thoughts constantly on loop and emotional turmoil and victim mentality. But a lot of people are going to really feel the battle, right, between these reoccurring negative thoughts and feelings of despair. I feel it sometimes. Sometimes I have the worst anxiety attacks because I'm just like, I have no fucking control over any of this shit that's going on, and I don't know what to do. And that's normal. Hate to say it, but it's normal. You could also feel, when you're in that midst of spiritual warfare, you could feel very spiritually disconnected or distant from your higher self. That's why it's so important to do what I said before and to like have that divine connection with Source and God. They have a hard time overcoming temptation. So a lot of people that are stuck in that spiritual warfare have addiction. They're battling bad habits like porn addiction, alcohol addiction, drug addiction, all the things, right? Like I said, they are going to constantly go back to unresolved trauma, fears, internal doubts. A lot of people, and I have experienced this a lot, as I have these crazy dreams, vivid dreams, where you're like having a fight between like the good and the evil. I've said this before on the podcast, but I struggle with sleep paralysis. And when I do a lot of really good spiritual work and I help a lot of people awaken, usually the day of the big event that I do, and I've had it so many times when I have big events, I'll wake up and my body's paralyzed and I can open my eyes and there's literally like a dark black gargoyle looking entity on my chest and I can't move and I can't speak. And I just have to wait for my pawns in my brain to wake up. And I know it's like a physical manifestation that happens to me because there's like ways to explain it scientifically and medically. But if you see what I see when I'm having when I'm having sleep paralysis, it is demonic. And it's like the devil saying to me, you better calm your tits down and stop trying to red pill all these people and stop trying to wake them up because I don't want that. I want them to stay in hypnotic rhythm. I want them to stay drifters, and I want them to be part of me in the opposition. And I have a lot of clients that I work with that always say, oh my God, everything feels so heavy right now. I just feel like Satan's coming for me. I just feel like I'm being attacked constantly. And I'm like, don't even let that thought into your mind. You cannot let the thought into your mind. And listen to me. And I'm going to end with this. And I think this is so important. There's this old saying, and I'm sure you've heard me say it before, is thieves don't break in to empty houses or homes, right? Thieves don't break in to empty homes. What does that mean? The devil wants something inside of you because you are so strong and you are so powerful. So instead of looking at it in a bad way, look at it in a good way. Like, oh my God, I am part of the opposition. I am here for God. I am part of the transition team. I chose, my soul chose to incarnate in this 3-dimensional physical human body so that I could help awaken humanity, that I could be part of the collective of humans that are awakening every day on this earth, and understand that God only chooses his strongest warriors. And like I said, if you didn't have something that the devil wanted, he wouldn't be fucking with you. Okay. But it's up to you to do everything that I said today, to ground, to center, to protect, to shield, to pray, to set your intentions, to cleanse your energy, to cord cut, to breathe, to stay calm, to always go back to God, to always go back to inner strength, to always go back to your faith, and to also control what you're exposing yourself to on a daily basis, and just focusing on love and light and how you're showing up and what you're bringing to the table, and also surrounding yourself with other like-minded, loving, kind individuals. That's all you can do. But I want you to get that through your mind. Remember that if you didn't have something that the devil wanted, you wouldn't be getting fucked with. Bottom line. But before we go today, I want to just go into my second podcast sponsor, and that's Hume Bod Pod. So if you're serious about optimizing your health and achieving your fitness goals, I've got something you'll want to hear about. I've partnered with Hume, the revolutionary at-home body composition measurement system, and it has been helping me immensely, and it's been helping my client. I want to give a big shout out to my client. She's part of KBMFC Wellness. She has a VIB, very important bitch membership at KBMFC Wellness. Her name is Jennifer Lambert, and she's been on the positive protocol for 7 days, and she's been using the Hume Bod Pod. She actually bought one. She has one at her home, but she also uses the one at my studio, and she has released 10 pounds in 1 week, just being on the positive protocol and having something like Hume to actually measure all of the different things that Hume measures, which is bone density, muscle, fat, the adipose tissue, the visceral fat, and so much more. It's a game changer, and it's helping my clients get into the best shape of their lives. So if you scroll down to the show notes and you click on that link, you're going to get $20 off your Hume Bod Pod. And that's my little gifty from Hume and yours truly and the Ambitchious Podcast. So I hope that this podcast gave you so much service and so much value. I really wanted to speak from my heart about it because it's something that I've been struggling with over the last couple of months. And I'm like, if I'm struggling with this, then I bet my girls are struggling with this as well. So that's why I wanted to talk about spiritual warfare. I hope I did a great job helping you today. And just know that I've been struggling with it too. And I don't want any of us to be struggling, because when we're in that struggle energy, we can't help people. When we're in that struggle energy, we can't be joyful and happy and live our best lives and know our mission and our purpose here. Just can't. It's a distraction. So if you felt like this podcast was valuable, please, from the bottom of my little black heart, I'd be so grateful if you shared it with all of your friends and all of your family. And if you do post on social media, don't forget to tag me in your posts. And in the meantime, don't forget to stay ambitious. And I will see you next Tuesday.